My name is Chuck Torrance. I am an electronics engineer. I had some good ideas for some electronic gadgets while I was in the military. When I got out, I patented them. I have since sold most of them after a couple of years of licensing them. If money is the scorecard of life, I hit a grand slam. I was 34 when all of this occurred. I am 5 foot 11 inches tall, have dirty blonde hair, blue to gray eyes, mood ring eyes. The color changes from blue to gray when my mood changes from relaxed to angry, and I weigh about 165 pounds. I am no Adonis, but I have never had trouble finding a girlfriend. And when I married, I got a dream, in the looks department, for my wife. Some other important things in my life and personality are: my word means something. When I say I am going to do something, I do it. I have a slow fuse, but when I get angry, look out. I am not violent by nature, but if you hurt me, I will destroy you, either physically or emotionally. I am loyal to my family and my friends. And last but germane to this story, I am a one-woman man. I have never dated 2 women at the same time, even if I was not in an exclusive relationship. If I am in an exclusive relationship, I expect my partner to be exclusive. I have a history of broken relationships and a broken engagement to prove it. I have ended relationships because of no spark, but I made it clear that that was the reason. However, when I found that my lady did not understand exclusivity, she found out that that was not a good thing. Because of this relationship issue, I joined the Army after I found my fiancé's engagement ring on the nightstand when she was going out for a night with the girls. I never heard from my ex-fiancée after I made the phone call and thanked her for the return of the ring. She realized that she screwed up. I served my time in the service, and when I was discharged, I went to work as a consultant engineer for a security company. I met Sally Gilmartin at a Friday night company or customer get-together when I was 27. I was immediately attracted to her. She is tall, 5 foot 10 inches without high heels, has legs that start at the ground, reach heaven, and go back down the other side to the ground. She has flaming red hair, milk skin, and freckles all over her cheeks. She also has a smile that lights up her face and makes a dark room bright. At the time we met, she was 25 and introduced me to her boyfriend at the party. As we had a live dance band at the party and Sally was not dancing, I asked her boyfriend if he would allow me to ask her to dance. He looked at me like I was some kind of a weirdo and said that it was okay with him. Sally said sure, and when we were dancing, I found out some things about her life and career. She was the only child, a lie, as I found out later, and she was being groomed by her father to take over the family company when her father was comfortable that she could. The music ended, and as I walked her back to the table, I thanked her for the dance. When I got back to the company table, I noticed something in my sports coat pocket. It was a note with Sally's phone number and a request to call her about getting together. As she had taken the time to identify her boyfriend, I was not pleased. I got up and walked over to the table and put the note between Sally and her escort and said to Sally, "No thanks. Cheating is not my style." Then I turned and walked out of the room, got in my car, and went back to my apartment. I got back to my place and changed into a set of scrubs that I called my grubbies. I had a beer, turned my phone off, and went to bed. Saturday, after I plugged the phone back in, it started ringing immediately. When I answered, it was my boss, Jack DeSoto, and he was angry. "What happened last night? You danced with Sally, then came back to the table, and I lost track of you." I explained that Sally had introduced her escort as her boyfriend, and then slipped me a note with her phone number on it and a request to get together with her. I went on to tell him about my personal relationship philosophy. He came back with, "Gilmartin Industries is one of the company's largest customers, and Mr. Gilmartin is angry at what you did. We need their business, and Sally will someday run that company. If you do not make an apology to her, you will never be promoted in our company, and if we lose them, you will be fired." Did I mention that I don't respond well to threats? I came back with a sarcastic, "Fine. I am putting you on notice that I have my resignation on your desk Monday morning." I will toe the company line, and I will do everything in my power to perform in my current position. But I will not apologize for my personal belief system. If you fire me, fine, but I will consider the non-compete clause in my contract null and void. I continued. If it will help the company, I will go and explain to Mr. Gilmartin what happened and what I believe in. I will not apologize to the lady. Jack replied, I do not want to lose you, damn it. You are the best engineer we have ever had. I will call Mr. Gilmartin and tell him what you just told me. If he decides he wants to talk to you, I ask that you agree to talk. I will, I replied, but your threat is not something I will stand for. My resignation will still be on your desk Monday morning. With that, I said my goodbyes and called a couple of friends, Frank Gorman and Bob Meadows, that I had made in the service. They had started an alarm and security systems installation company and had asked me to come to work for them. They would not be able to pay me the same salary, but could offer me a chance to become a part owner. I gave them a rundown of what had happened and told them that if the offer was still on the table, I was willing to listen. They wanted to get together and suggested that we meet Monday evening at the country club that Bob's dad owned. I was also a member. I came back with, how about we go to the club's Sunday brunch? I explained that I was not sure I would have a job after Monday, and if I did, I would not discuss employment with them then, because I was on call for emergency repairs, so I had to work evenings all next week. They agreed. When I got to the club, the guys were there, and so were the Gilmartins and the guy from the party. At first, I thought that there was going to be trouble, but after we got seated, Sally came over and asked if I could go over to their table for a minute. I reluctantly agreed, and when I arrived, Mr. Gilmartin surprised me by saying, Mr. Torrance, I want to apologize to you. I did not know the full story. If I had known what Sally had done, I would not have talked to your boss yesterday. I want to introduce you to my oldest child, David Gilmartin, Jr. The guy from the get-together stood up to shake my hand. He had a smirk on his face, so I did not extend mine right away. Sally then spoke up. Please, Chuck. David was my beard last night, so I did not get hit on by every Romeo that was there. I am sorry for what you thought, but when I finally understood what you thought, you were already gone, want to have a chance to know you better, especially someone who has the character that you showed that night. I stood there for a second. Then I said, I still do not like that you thought I would poach someone's girlfriend or that you lied to me twice, but I will think about what you said. What you did and what my reaction was has caused me major problems at my work. You need to know that while I now know you were sincere, I still am angry that you did not tell me what was going on, instead of sneaking a note into my pocket. I continued. I'm going to return to my friends, and if you decide you still want to know more about me, contact me at work, or better yet, here is my phone number. I may not be working for a while after Monday. I am sorry to be abrupt, but I have some friends without an agenda to talk to. I would appreciate it if you would think about the entire weekend before you decide. I went back to eat with Frank and Bob. I told them of all of the happenings from the past 2 days. They thought my boss was over the top with the threats. They also said that the state courts have voided almost all non-competes except for poaching by a direct competitor. They offered me a chance to buy into their company. I told them that I did not have the money to do that, but I had some gadgets that I was shopping around, and if they pan out, I may loan them some capital at a favorable rate. Then they offered me a job as their service supervisor. The pay would only be about 75% of what I was making now. I said I would give them a decision by the end of the coming week. Monday was almost as bad as I thought it would be. I had my resignation in my hand when I was called into the boss's office. I handed him the letter and turned to walk out. Jack said quietly, If you continue out that door before we talk, you can just keep going. I stopped and turned around and said, I intend to. You should understand that after the phone call on Saturday morning, I have already been offered a new position, and if you want to play hardball, I ain't playing. The new job offer is from a company that is not in direct competition. Because of that, I think you would have a hard time enforcing the non-compete clause. Because I have solved your problem with Gilmartin Industries, and I like this company, say what you want, and I will decide if I will withdraw my resignation. Be aware of any more threats of job action, and I am out the door. As you said, I will keep on going. Jack sat back in his seat. He started to say something, stopped with his mouth open, closed it, and started laughing. When he finally stopped laughing, he said, "You are one bull-headed jerk, but I don't like threats either, so I would have said and done almost the same." As for the Gilmartin account, I talked to David Sr. yesterday, and he said he wished that all of his contacts had your integrity. He also said that when you went back to your table, David Jr. lit into his sister for using him in her deception. Your job, if you want to stay, is safe, but as I was not aware of all of the details, if you leave, I would not even think of enforcing the non-compete. I also want to apologize for making the threats. Like you, I have a temper, and I get my back up and say things I shouldn't. I sat down and listened as Jack told me. I want you to think about continuing here. You are being promoted to senior engineering troubleshooter. It will mean a lot less overnight travel, but also mean that you will be overseeing a bunch of bull-headed jerks. Does that sound like anyone you know? I was flabbergasted. I left the office in a daze. When I got to my desk, there was nothing on it except a big note that said, "Follow the yellow brick road." I turned around and saw all of the engineers holding copy paper with yellow bricks on them and arrows pointing. I left and followed to the corner of our department where a mock castle was set up with a desk, and all of the stuff from my area was here. On the desk was a big sign saying, "HM Chuck Torrance." I was totally in awe, and I turned to all of the people. I thanked them all for what they have done. Someone in the back shouted, "Look in the top left drawer." I did, and there was a toy whip. I started laughing and turned and cracked the whip in the air and screamed, "All right, slaves, back to the salt mines." When the laughter stopped, I went to each desk and said thanks again. I also told them that Friday I was buying a couple of rounds at the Nut House, a local lounge that we normally stopped at after work when there was no work the next day. I said that everyone could leave their car at work, and I would rent vans to take us there, and for cabs to take everyone home. About 3 weeks later, one of my newer hired engineers came and asked if I would go with him to assist with a nagging problem we had with one of the Gilmartin plants. I asked for some background, and when he filled me in, I grabbed a software package, in case we had to do a reinstall, and all of the specification sheets. We left for the drive across town. When we arrived, the security department manager thanked us both for coming. He explained that they had an intermittent security breach signal in their supply room. He added that every time someone checked, the room was locked, and nothing seemed to be out of place. One nice thing about our systems is that we have a recording of all of the security breaches and can see the time, duration, where, and how the alarms occurred. I looked over the history of the problems. I noticed that there seemed to be a pattern. All of the breaches occurred at shift change and through a door that was clearly marked as an emergency exit only. The funny thing was that the problem was occurring in the first and second shifts, but not in the midnight shift. There was not an every time shift change or specific day problem. It was indeed intermittent, but always at shift change. I asked to go to look at the door. It was a few minutes until the shift changed. I looked at the door, the connections, and the wiring. Other than noticing a small fraying of some of the wiring, I did not see anything obvious. Shift change came and there was a parking lot on the outside of the door. As the cars left, I noticed that the frayed wires were moving around. All of a sudden, I had a brainstorm. I went up to the door and grabbed the push bar and pulled. The door and frame moved enough to trigger the alarm. There were surprised looks on the engineer and the security guys. The plant people saw that the mortar around the door was crumbling. They shook my hand and said that a work order would be produced as soon as possible. I told my engineer to replace the damaged wire, and when the door was fixed, there should not be any more problems. As we were returning to the van to get some wire, I explained to the new man that sometimes the alarms going off can point out problems that really had only a partial security problem. I told him about some of the problems that I had had in the past. We fixed the wiring, and the plant facilities people were already fixing the door problem. The next morning, my company phone rang, and the receptionist told me I had a call. When I picked up the line, the call was on. It was Sally Gill Martin. She thanked me for solving the problem. I deflected the praise to the quick repairs when the problem was identified. She also said that they figured out that because only maintenance worked the third shift, no one parked in that far lot. As we were ending the call, Sally asked me if I would accompany her to a charity event coming up in 2 weeks. I agreed. That started our relationship. We dated for about 6 months when Sally asked if we could be exclusive. I told her I already was, but we needed to sit down so she would understand my attitude about relationships. When we were finished with the conversation, Sally said that she felt almost the same, but she did wonder if exclusive meant no business dates. I asked what she meant by a business date. Before she could answer, I said that meetings and dinners with clients were not dates, but one-on-one entertaining of clients or co-workers at movies, plays, drinks, or similar activities would not make me happy. Sally looked confused and said, "Are you saying I can't take a male client to a movie as a thank you for their business?" Yes, that is exactly what I am saying. Especially if it is just one-on-one or you are to accompany a man from the business along with other couples. If the client or customer offers the same thing, that would break the exclusivity also. It is not a good business practice. It is very easy to misinterpret the meeting. Sally thought for a few moments, nodded, and said, "I see where you are coming from. Now that I think about it, it would be very easy to look at it as wrong." That clearing of the air, we dated for another 6 months when at Halloween I asked Sally to marry me. She laughed at my choice of days and said, of course. She said that we could set a date for early the next spring. Because of our apparent differences in worth, David Sr. insisted on a prenup. It was very specific. What we have before is ours if we divorce. What we accumulate we would divide equally, except in the case of adultery or abuse. Then the injured party gets all of the accumulated worth. We had a great wedding, a lot of dancing, and when we left, the party was going strong. We honeymooned in Galveston, Texas, and on the Gulf of Mexico. I started to earn substantial money from my patents, but I put that money in an investment account and did not do anything with it except take enough out to pay all of the taxes. I was even given an offer for the sale of one of the older inventions for over $1 million. I sold it. We found a home in an upscale neighborhood, and when I saw how much Sally loved the house, I wrote a check for the full amount and told her we were putting down roots. Life was great until I found the note. I arrived home from a business trip on Friday at about 7:30 p.m. The house was very quiet, no TV, no sounds from the kitchen, no greeting from Sally, no noise at all. Strange, she was a TV addict. Even when she wasn't watching it, it was on. When I went into the master bedroom to change into my grubbies that I wore after work, I saw the note on the pillows of the bed. "Chuck, I know that this is going to be a surprise, but I am leaving you. I have found someone else. I will be finding an attorney in the next week. I will be filing for a no-fault divorce. I know I am hurting you with this, but I have fallen out of love with you. I still have feelings for you, and I am sorry for causing this hurt. I have not cheated on you, but this man has taken all of my heart. I know that you will find someone in the future. Please do not try to contact me. I will only talk to you through my lawyer. I hope you find a true soulmate. Sally." I was stunned, hurt, and angry. I had not seen anything like this coming. I had not noticed any changes in our family life. The only changes that had occurred were when Sally got angry every time I brought up starting a family. When I brought that up, there was a month or longer deep freeze, and at times it was so bad that I called David Sr. and David Jr., and they both claimed they had not talked to Sally. They were surprised when I told them that she left me for someone else. I called Jack and asked for a couple of days off. I explained what was going on in my life and that I needed to find a lawyer. Jack had been through a divorce and said that his lawyer, Ralph Masters, saved him a ton of time, worry, and money. He gave me his lawyer's number and told me to take all the time I needed. I spent Saturday morning trying to understand what I did to cause Sally to act way. I also thought there might be something that could point to the possibility that she was cheating. I couldn't think of anything offhand. There were no late nights, no nights out with the girls, no out-of-the-ordinary business trips. There were not any old boyfriends that she had said were back in her life. In fact, she complained about a guy from work who was flirting with her to the point where she had to fire him for harassment. Saturday afternoon, I had a thought. Sally, for all of her smarts, was a computer babe in the woods. She did not use a laptop and had an email account that I had set up for her. I tried to explain computer security and internet security, but she just did not get it. I went to the home office and fired up the computer. I checked the internet history and saw that there was a new email account. When I tried to check it out, I saw that it was password protected. As Sally was not computer smart, I knew she had to have the password stored around the office somewhere. The first places I looked were under the blotter, the bottom of the keyboard, and the sides and bottom of the computer chassis. Then I did a file search for files that had been accessed in the past several weeks. Bingo! There was a file called Password in a hidden folder that was not protected. Sally did not understand attribute settings, so when she set the folder up, she set it up as a hidden folder, but did not realize that I could find it by changing the file view settings. In the password file, I found the password for that account, and for an online bank account that I did not know about. When I checked the online bank account, I saw that Sally had been saving some money that I did not know about from a company that was in competition with Gilmartin Industries. There was nearly $5 million in it. I wondered what business Sally had with a competitor. I decided to mess with her mind. After I printed the entire account records out, I changed the password, closed that account down, and opened the email account. There was a smoking gun. All of the emails were to Jerry Marshall, and he was from a town about 30 miles away. I remember Sally saying she had to go to a meeting in that town about 8 months before I found the note. Reading the emails, it seems that when she went to the meeting, she met an old college flame. The old flame would not take no for an answer. This Jerry rescued Sally and put the jerk in his place. He was working at the competitor's company. He was in product design. I saw now where the money came from. This guy was paying Sally to spy on her company for new products and potential products. She had sent several hundred files from her office computer and from our home computer. Then there were the messages describing the afternoons that she took off to join him in hotels and motels for intimacy. She gushed about what a fantastic lover he was. Then she also ran down me to be a stick in the mud who wanted to ruin her figure by having a family. She also sent him nude selfies from her phone that she downloaded and then deleted after she sent them. In one, she had taken a picture of fluids running out of her body and attached a note saying, "Look at what you did to me. I love it." In another, she took a picture of her, but showed her big back enough to put a 5-cell flashlight in it. That one was captioned, "Your big tool destroyed my back. It did fit like you said it would." There were pictures of him showing his face and some of his nude body. He also thanked her for helping him in his job, so much for not cheating on our marriage. Now, if I went looking for him, I knew what he looked like. I also had some identifying tattoos and scars to go by. I printed out all of the emails and separated the ones that were about her stealing secrets from Gilmartin and copied them to give to David Sr. I then put all of the emails in an envelope and the copies for David Sr. in another one. I was now beyond angry, so I went back into her bank account and transferred all but 1 penny for each day we have been married into a new account with my investment bank. I left less than $20 in the account. If the account came up in the divorce, I would give it back, but after seeing what she thought of me, I was going to counter-sue for adultery. It was still early in the afternoon, but after all of the shocks, I was exhausted. I made myself a sandwich and went to bed. I slept for almost 14 hours, and when I woke up, I saw that it was about 7 a.m. I made myself a big breakfast. Around 9, I called David Gilmartin Sr. and asked if he could meet me at the club for lunch. I told him it was very important and it concerned his company. He agreed to meet but said to make it an afternoon, and he would be bringing David Jr. with him because it would concern him too. I said that was fine, and agreed to 3. I then called Jack back and asked what he would recommend that I bring to the meeting with the lawyer. He gave me a list of financial things and said if I had anything that could be damaging to her suit that was in writing or pictures, to bring them too. I finally called Frank and Bob and asked if they had a computer geek who could recover deleted files. Bob said he could and would come over as soon as he finished breakfast. When he showed up, he recovered all of the pictures and also about 50 more of her that she apparently did not send to her boyfriend. I had Bob print them out. Then I had a very nasty thought. I asked Bob if he could break into a Facebook account. He said no, but he could get into an account and get a friends list. I told him do it, and I gave him Sally's Facebook password from her password file. When he got into the account, he decided to print out the entire list of friends. I told him to shut everything down, as I had not decided what I was going to do yet. I just wanted ammunition when I went into negotiations during the divorce. The meeting at the club went about as I expected. At first, there was denial that Sally would do something like that. Then when I mentioned the name of the company, the light bulb moment came. David Jr. remembered that several of the products that they were planning to market suddenly were brought out by the other company. Then I showed them the emails with the stolen files attached. They were shocked. I asked if they wanted anything else from me, and when they said no, I left to return home. Monday morning, I called the lawyer's office, and he had an opening the next day. His secretary emailed me a list of things to bring to the meeting, and as I had most of them at the house, I put them in the packet with the emails and pictures. I called our insurance agent and had him send me the change of beneficiary forms. I called our bank and credit card companies and froze all of the accounts. Then I called my investment banker and got a $2,000 a day debit card and had him move some money into a drawing account to cover day-to-day bills. Then I told him to remove access to the accounts from anyone but me. He laughed and said, "You never did give your wife access, and when she tried to get into the account Friday, she was angry." I hung up and drove over to his office and picked up the drawing account drafts, don't call them checks, and he told me that Sally had come in with a withdrawal slip that she claimed I had signed. He told her it was company policy that all withdrawals had to be made out in their office, and then and only then would the funds be disbursed. I asked how much she tried to get, and he said $250,000. I asked if he had any record of the transaction. He said, "I will show you even better. I have the withdrawal slip, and because of your call, I made a copy of the video recording of the attempt. I will give you both for a drink tonight at the Nut House." I laughed and said, "Deal. Shall we say 6? He agreed, shook my hand, and I left with the drafts and the evidence. I then went to the personnel office at my work and took Sally off my work life insurance and 401k documents, and also off my health insurance. The head of HR told me that health insurance was still in force until the end of the month, but after that, it would only apply to me. I grabbed a late lunch, early supper, and went home to veg out for a couple of hours. When I got there, there were several messages on the phone. I listened to all of them, and they were all from Sally complaining that her credit cards didn't work. I deleted them all. Then, as I was walking away, the phone rang again, and I saw that it was David Sr. I picked it up. He told me that Sally had called and cried to him that her credit cards didn't work. He told me he just laughed and told her that he had frozen her trust fund, so she could not get into that either. When I went to meet Ralph Masters, call me Ralph, he was pleased that I had almost all of the stuff he needed. He asked how I wanted to proceed. I asked him what would happen if I waited until I was served so I could have her served through her attorney. Ralph laughed and said that way she would probably be forced to pay his bill. I told him I would make sure that she would not stiff him, as I would guarantee his bill if I had to pay it myself. I then told him of her family's trust being blocked, so she had no access to that money. I even said that I did not think of it, her father did. When I returned home, there were some weeping messages from Sally saying that it was all a big mistake. I laughed to myself. Then I erased the messages. Then I realized that I was the owner of her cell phone. I called the cell phone company and closed my account effective immediately. I then went to Walmart and bought the same smartphone on a pay-as-you-go plan. It was easy to transfer all my contacts and personal information. I was even able to keep my phone number. As you can see by the steps I have taken, I am a vindictive son of a blip. I wasn't done yet. I had some plans in mind. I called Ralph and asked what his obligations were for reporting industrial espionage. He told me that he was required to report any crimes not involving his client. I told him that he needed to talk to the state police or FBI and give them copies of the documents I gave him. I also told him he could use me as a source. I then asked if we could sue the Lovers Company for alienation of affection and collusion. He said it probably wouldn't work, but the publicity would hurt them. I said do it, and said my goodbyes. Two very important things happened the next week. I was served with divorce papers. The cheating woman was going to try to void the prenup. She wanted half of everything we had, not just accumulated in the marriage. Also, she wanted $2,500 per month for spousal support, the house, half of my 401k, and for me to carry her on my health insurance. The next thing that happened was that the FBI contacted me and their agent, and Agent Claiborne said that they appreciated my willingness to help. They cautioned me that the company that they were after was into a lot of illegal stuff, including money laundering. They told me that if they perceived there was a threat to me, they would supply a protective detail. I mentioned that if I was in that much danger, would they please bug my phone and my cell? He agreed and set up a time for their techs to come to the house and set up the equipment. He also asked me to wear a small pocket-sized recorder. I agreed and asked if I could come in and get the device first thing in the morning. Then they surprised me by asking who my wife's lawyer was. When I told him, they informed me that the lawyer was a known mouthpiece for several of the principals involved in this whole debacle. I called Ralph and told him I had been served. I also told him that she was going for blood. He advised that we were now in the catbird seat. Then I told him that she was after the prenup and that would stop all of her requests. Ralph asked me to bring a certified copy of the pre, and also told me that he had contacted both the state police and the FBI. When I laughed, he asked what was funny. I related the call from the FBI. I also advised him to be careful because it was now more than just a divorce. I gave him my FBI contact's name. I got the wire. Then I was told that Ralph had contacted them. Unfortunately, because he is a lawyer, they could not bug his office phone. But Ralph installed a personal recorder and would give them a copy of any threats he receives. Boy, things were getting complicated. As I left the FBI office, I was roughly bumped and knocked down by a man moving down the street. He turned and said loudly, "Watch yourself, jerk." I checked the recorder, and it was still there. When I checked my other pockets, I found a note in one of my pockets. I touched the note but did not remove it from my pocket. I immediately returned to the building and met with my contact. I told him that I had been slipped a note as I was leaving the building and assaulted. Agent Claiborne called his forensics techs, and they removed the note with some tweezers. The note was a direct threat. It was on a type of paper that would not allow for recovery of fingerprints and was printed on an old-school dot matrix printer, so unless they recovered the exact printer, they could not prove who or where it was printed. I was immediately assigned 2 agents as a protective detail. The forensics techs asked for my car keys and parking ticket. They said they would have the car checked out before moving it, and if it was safe, they would take it to my house. The 2 agents, Jane and Steve Winslow, told me they were twins and they looked like it. The agents took me down to the building's garage and into an armored van. As we left the building, there was an explosion from the public parking garage where my car was. The Winslows immediately called for an update. They were told that the car had been rigged to explode. It was remotely triggered when the technicians approached it, and then used the key fob to unlock the doors. Luckily, they were wearing armor, and most of the blast went downward. The techs had some cuts and bruises and ringing ears. They caught the trigger man as he tried to drive out of the garage because he ran over some of the debris and punctured all 4 of his tires. That news did not make me feel better. I was afraid, but because I am such a stubborn bastard, it just made me mad. When we arrived at my house, the Winslows told me to stay in the van until they could check out the house. They went all around the house, out to the mailbox on the curb, and even checked all of the vehicles parked within sight of the house. When they came to get me, they told me they found another threatening note in my mailbox, and someone had tried to force the rear patio door. I explained that I was in the security business and had almost every angle of the house covered with 24-hour stop-action video surveillance. When they were sure that there was no immediate threat, they wanted to see the video setup. I took them into the garage and showed them a large, very heavy safe that I had cemented into the garage floor. It was not visible unless someone moved the toolboxes. Jane commented that she had wondered why my garage back wall was tied up against a large grassy mound. I laughed and showed them the safe room that was accessed by pulling the back of the utility closet that was next to the workbench. I explained that just because I am paranoid doesn't mean the jerks aren't out to get me. They laughed. After we retrieved the DVR recordings, I set up the playback and DVD backup system. As we watched, we saw the man I recognized from the deleted pictures and hidden emails. When I pointed out the man and zoomed in on his face as he looked around to make sure no one was watching, the Winslows both nodded and asked for copies of the close-up. Then we started the playback up again and saw our man and another I did not recognize come up the driveway and get up on the patio and try to pry the patio door. When that did not work, they tried to break the door glass to gain entrance. That did not work either. I started explaining to the Winslows that the frame was high carbon-hardened steel and the glass was bullet-resistant Lexan. Again, when the laughter stopped, I started with, "Just because," and the laughter started again. After I made all of the copies, the Winslows talked me into going to one of their safe houses after I gathered enough clothing and necessities for 1 month or more stay. They said they would clear it with my boss, and someone would be living in the house to try and throw the bad guys off. They also told me they would arrange for all of my phone calls to be forwarded to the safe house. On the way to the safe house, Jane told me that she recognized the guy I identified as Jerry. She said one of his names was Juan Gomez, and he was connected to the Sinaloa cartel out of Mexico. She said he also was a star in a lot of Mexican adult films. She said he was a very bad boy in every way. That information made me think. As much as I despised what Sally did and was doing, I did not want her dead, just gone. I asked Jane if they could track Sally down and get her to safety. I said that I felt she was just a pawn in one of their schemes, a willing pawn, but she probably did not know who she was dealing with. Steve said that he would look into it as soon as I was in a safe house. I got settled into my new temporary quarters, which turned out to be a flag officer's house on a local Air Force base. The house was a 4-bedroom 2-story with very secure access as you had to pass through the main gate, a secondary gate at the entrance to the officer's country, and then a sentry at the road entrance to the flag quarters. There were 2 agents in the house and 2 more in the garage that had been converted into an electronic surveillance shack. I felt very safe, but I took the agent's advice and did not go outside. About a week later, Steve Winslow came to the safe house and told me he had very bad news. He took me into a bedroom, closed the door, and said, "There is no easy way to say this. When we tried to rescue Sally, there was a gunfight. Jane was wounded slightly, but as she was moving Sally was shot. She is in serious condition but is expected to make a full recovery, except she lost sight in her left eye. She will probably have some scarring, and we will be offering her witness protection when she comes out of anesthesia. She was asking for you. Do you want to see her?" "No, not only no, but hell no. When she goes into witness protection, I do not want to ever see her again." I was so angry that I was shouting. The woman cheats on me, steals from her family, and then when she is caught wants me to give her everything in the divorce. I know that I will also be going into the program, but if you want my testimony, you are going to have to get her to sign the divorce papers that my attorney will have her served with. Is that clear? I calmed down then and said, I'm sorry I yelled at you, Steve, and I hope your sister is going to be okay. That stupid woman and what she did makes me so angry. I really am sorry that she was injured, but I might have been better off if she had been killed. At least then I could mourn her and move on. Now, even with a divorce, I will know that she is out there somewhere. The divorce papers were signed. I was officially single again, and the FBI even let me transfer all of my investments and licensing contracts to my new identity. They even let me keep the money I stole from Sally. The company that was spying on Gil Martin Industries went out of business. The Gil Martins got the business in a secret government auction, and they were the only bidders. The price was $1. I bought a large piece of Bob and Frank's business. Mexico had a huge funeral and mourning festival for the death of one of their greatest adult stars. It seems that the cartel blamed Jerry for seducing my wife and bringing the whole operation to a crashing end. The less involved officers of the company were sentenced to many years in Club Fed, and some of the more important ones were sent to a Supermax Gray Bar hotel in Kansas. I have been moved to a safe house in the capital area. I now work for the FBI, training some of their tech people in video surveillance and security equipment. I have found a nice tech in the Secret Service counterfeiting section, and we seem to have something going there. She, too, is only in for an exclusive relationship. It seems her former husband deserted her when she got pregnant. Her son is 6 years old and already calls me uncle and asks when he can call me dad. My old house is now an FBI safe house, and I have never heard from Sally. I know they relocated her, but they also told her that she would be prosecuted if she ever tried to find me. Life is a fatal disease. All we can do is fight like hell to make it last. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.